Sarah woke up in the middle of the night. But this time, something was different. Around her, the familiar darkness that had accompanied her for too long seemed to dissolve. She had always lived in darkness, an invisible prison that had isolated her from the world. But that night, without warning, she realized that her eyes were seeing something, a glimmer of thin light, and her heart began to beat faster. Before you find out how this incredible story will evolve, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the next exciting events. Enjoy! Sarah, a young woman from Florence, had a life that many would have envied. Always passionate about pastry making, she had managed to transform her passion into a successful job. Her wedding cakes were known throughout the city and were often requested for important weddings. She worked hard, never spared herself, and over time, she had built a small business of her own. Every day, she rose early to prepare sweets and decorations that reflected not only her skill, but also the love she put into each creation. Her marriage to Thomas was a safe haven, filled with laughter, complicity, and mutual support. He always encouraged her to pursue her dreams, despite the fatigue and stress that sometimes knocked her down. But that golden age was about to undergo a drastic change. One day, almost out of the blue, Sarah began to notice that her vision was getting blurry. At first, she thought it was just tiredness, too many consecutive days of work, the pressure of running her business relentlessly. But week after week, it got worse. The darkness was getting thicker, and she couldn't ignore it any longer. It was during one of the most important events of his career that darkness took over. He had just finished one of his most complex creations, a wedding cake for the daughter of a well-known Florentine entrepreneur. It was the kind of occasion that could have given her career a boost. But as she stood in the ballroom to present the cake, the mother of the bride looked at her with angry eyes. "This is not the cake we agreed upon. Look at that decoration, it's all wrong." Sarah, embarrassed and terrified, couldn't see what had really happened. She couldn't make out the details, and the darkness that enveloped her vision prevented her from correcting her mistake. She felt paralyzed, unable to deal with the situation. She quickly called a pastry chef friend who fortunately managed to save the situation, redoing the decoration in time. But for Sarah, that moment marked the beginning of the end. The darkness that had been creeping into her life for weeks now swallowed her up completely. After that day, Sarah decided to see a specialist. Sitting in the doctor's office, the tension was palpable. Thomas was beside her, holding her hand as the doctor explained the seriousness of the situation. "You have a tumor on your pituitary gland," the doctor said calmly. "It's compressing your optic nerves. The only way to restore your vision is with surgery. We can't guarantee that you'll have your sight back completely, but there's a chance." The doctor's words hit her like a bolt of lightning. Sarah couldn't believe her life had changed so drastically. In an instant, her career, her dreams, everything she had built seemed to vanish. But what terrified her most was the idea of surgery. The memory of her grandmother, who died after an operation that was considered simple, was too painful to allow her to face an operating room once again. "I will never do that surgery," she said, her voice shaking but determined. Thomas tried to convince her in every way, reminding her how important it was for their family that she could regain her autonomy. But Sarah was adamant. She did not want to risk losing her life like her grandmother. The days turned into weeks. and Sarah retreated deeper into that dark world, unwilling to look for a way out. Then, one night, something unexpected happened. Sarah dreamed. She was in a beautiful garden, surrounded by flowers of every color, and there, in the middle of that paradise, was her grandmother. In a soft, reassuring voice, her grandmother said to her, "Life is full of colors, my dear. Don't let the shadow of fear keep you in the dark." Sarah woke with a start, her heart pounding. The words kept echoing in her mind. She felt a new hope, something she had never felt before. She hugged Thomas, waking him up in the middle of the night, and with a new determination she said, "I'm going to do the surgery. There's a flower I need to see." If you also find this story interesting, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. A few days later, Sarah was ready for surgery. As she prepared to enter the operating room, her apprehension was palpable. "Thomas, if anything happens to me, take care of everything," she said, trying to hold back tears. But Thomas, with a reassuring smile, kissed her forehead and said, "Everything will be okay. See you later." The surgery was a success. The tumor was removed, but Sarah had another question. When will I be able to see again? The doctor, although cautious, reassured her that there was a good chance she would regain some vision, but it would take time to know how much. Days passed, and every morning Sarah said a silent prayer, hoping that this would be the day she would see the world she had lost again. Then, one night, it happened. She opened her eyes and noticed a light, faint but unmistakable, coming from the hallway. Her heart leapt into her throat. She could see again. Without thinking, she got up from the bed, and without having to feel the walls anymore, she headed for the next room. There, she found Thomas, with their little Rebecca, in his arms. It was the first time she had seen the face of her little girl, born a few months after she had lost her sight. With tears streaming down her face, she took her little girl in her arms, and her voice breaking with emotion, whispered, "You are so beautiful, so much more than I could ever have imagined." The family hugged each other, overwhelmed with joy. Sarah had finally found the light, not only in her eyes, but also in her heart. Sarah's story teaches us that even in the darkest moments, we must never let fear keep us from seeking the light.